Uh-oh. Looks like I'm stuck in my brain again. I think? I don't know, maybe if I think of something, it'll manifest.
Cats. I'm a kitty cat. And I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
Yeah, definitely my brain in here.
Dance, dance, and I dance, dance, dance. Cats. I'm a kitty cat.
Well, since I'm stuck in here until sometime, I guess I need to figure out what to do about it. You know, maybe it's like a ghost thing where I have unfinished business, and I need to figure out what it is in order to escape. But the only thing that I could think of that would be unfinished business is Earthworm Jim being trans. Before I go any further, I feel it necessary to say that trans rights are human rights, and if you don't like it, well... So, Earthworm Jim. You know, I really only know about Earthworm Jim because of Earthworm Jim 3D, and that's really not the best source of information to base a character review on, so I really need to learn more about Earthworm Jim somehow. Oh, of course, the show! Oh man, I almost forgot about it. It would be a great source of information to learn about Earthworm Jim. But now I have to watch all 8.5 hours of it. Groovy.
So now that I'm adequately familiar with Earthworm Jim media, minus the other games because I don't have them, and from what I'm seeing from other videos, it doesn't seem to really affect the character development of Earthworm Jim that much. Let me know in the comments if I'm completely wrong about that assessment, by the way. Let's start with how Earthworm Jim became sentient. Earthworm Jim was being a worm one day and a super suit fell out of the sky and landed on him, and his suit somehow bestowed hyper-intelligence and sentience upon him. This allowed him to become the superhero we all know and love as Earthworm Jim. Not a very intense backstory, I know, but it fits the comedic narrative just fine.
And now for a biology lesson. Believe me, it's important to know what this is all about.
We think of worms as bugs or insects, but they aren't insects. They are actually annelids. And one thing about annelids is that a significant percentage are hermaphroditic organisms. Earthworms have both male and female genitalia, which means that Earthworm Jim, by biological canon, is intersex.
Fascinating. But what does this have to do with him being trans?
This realization of Jim being trans becomes manifest in Earthworm Jim 3D because the last boss in the game is Earthworm Kim, a female persona of Earthworm Jim. And if you didn't see my last review where I actually talked about the game, you should see it. But the entire game takes place inside Jim's mind, meaning that Kim is literally a facet of Jim's personality.
I literally parodied the intro to this game with this video as well.
When you confront Kim, she says she is tired of being suppressed and wants to take over the entirety of Jim's mind, making her the main identity. When you touch her, you change places until you touch again, implying that Jim's current gender identity really is that fragile and subject to change. The battle itself is Jim practicing denial of his femininity and intent on staying within his own established gender, which so far has brought him comfort, or so he thought. Winning the battle just suppresses the feminine identity further, but then he is squished with a refrigerator, which could represent dysphoria now that he knows that Kim is part of his personality. And gaining all the marbles in the game unlocks Earthworm Kim as a playable character, and the game becomes considerably harder, which could represent the difficulties faced with transitioning and losing male privileges as Earthworm Jim. But what evidence is there in the show? There has to be something there, or else watching all 23 episodes has no relevance other than dated 90s and cheesy humorous entertainment value. Let's start with the most obvious and well-known trans behavior, dressing as the opposite gender. As far as I'm aware, there are 2 instances of cross-dressing in the show. During the intro, there's a tiny short bit where we see Jim wearing a wig, and then in Season 1, Episode 4, Day of the Fish, one of Bob the Fish's hent cats is being confused by Jim dressing up as both the cat's father and mother for a brief moment. And while the dad cosplay is more dominant, the mother is still there, lurking, waiting, in the shadows.
I know these are meant to be little gags for the show, but they're still breadcrumbs that lead to more evidence to Jim being trans.
Then the other main instance I recalled from the show that almost every trans person can relate to is that Jim's greatest fear is public restrooms. This happens in Season 2, Episode 5, Evil in Love. He tries to justify it with a lame excuse like there's no seat protectors, which is, fair. But any trans person definitely knows the anxiety involved with going into a restroom that does not conform to their gender identity.
Heck, even going into the correct restroom causes major anxiety if you feel like you don't pass.
But why is this such a big deal? Well, Jim's dysphoria began with the supersuit. Let's face it, as an ordinary worm, Jim had no concept of gender. Earthworms aren't sentient and have basic instincts. They only live to consume nutrients, mate, and then pass on. But the suit, falling on Jim and mutating him into a superhero, also imprinted a gender identity upon him. The suit was originally designed by Professor Monkey for a head, and it was meant for use by Queen Pulsating, Bloated, Festering, Sweaty, Pus-Filled, Malformed Slug for a Bud. Actual name. And although we eventually get to see her wear the supersuit, it is definitely apparent it was not actually meant for her to wear. That or Professor Monkey for a Head is a dick and a bad tailor. Instead, I postulate that Professor Monkey for a Head made the suit with his own ideas on what a super soldier would be, and that included some fairly toxic ideas of masculinity. The overdeveloped muscles and masculine cliches play into this heavily, but do those traits exude toxicity by themselves? No, them being forced onto someone might be, however, even in the name of comedy. So the other side could be true as well. Had Professor Monkey for a Head made a femme version of the supersuit, Earthworm Jim would have most definitely been Earthworm Kim instead. Because, as I have said before, earthworms have no concept of gender unless it's impressed upon them. Let's go back to Earthworm Jim 3D for a moment with the actual battle between Jim and Kim. So you get touched by Kim, and then Jim and Kim trade places. This implies that Jim's gender is more fluid and not necessarily set in stone. Most trans people start feeling that their gender doesn't match their assigned gender at birth, and then it persists as such, staying with them for a very long time if not indefinitely. However, this battle implies that Jim could very well be gender fluid. Some people might not consider being gender fluid to be trans, but I generally do because gender fluid people often feel like a gender that conflicts with their assigned gender at birth. And then, Jim might instead be bigender, which seems fairly likely when considering him being intersex.
The main thing to take away from this is that Earthworm Jim is in fact an LGBTQI+ icon.
Sure, he didn't start out that way. He was meant to be a wacky and zany character meant to satire platform games and cliches of the early 90s. But circumstances of who and what Earthworm Jim has developed into has placed him squarely into the LGBTQI+ camp. To me, he is important in this way because he is an LGBTQI+ icon without people even knowing it. And that's really important because we are people too, and it's not necessary to broadcast that fact to everyone in order for us to receive the respect that we deserve. It's not shoving it down people's throats. It's us simply existing. And if your opinion of someone completely changes negatively just by finding out that someone is gay or trans, then you need to check your worldviews. People don't magically change once you find out that they're LGBTQI+, and neither should your views of them. People love Jim for his zany antics, not what's in his pants, and that will last a long time. And the fact that Jim gets to represent a very marginalized part of the LGBTQI+ community is freaking awesome!
So there's also a new Earthworm Jim TV show that's supposed to be coming out soon. And it was announced with a video with an exclusive interview with Earthworm Jim.
The video outlines what to expect from the show, but one line really stuck out to me.
A worm lost in space can't be an earthworm, right? It's just a worm. Now we're talking about an identity crisis here.
That right there. I know they are talking about him being displaced from Earth, but with Earthworm Kim being canon from the games, I hope to see more on this front.
Only time will tell. So thanks for watching the inside of my mind, I guess. I kind of forgot that I went in this direction, so, Oh, I know! Great, I'm awake again. And it's been almost 3 weeks. Bet all the dishes have been building up. Damn it!
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video where I gush about Earthworm Jim. It's a bit different than my normal stuff, but I felt very passionate about it. I want to give a very special shout out of thanks to my buddy Seamus for making Earthworm Jim holding an intersex flag for me. It's perfection. If you want to see more, you can check out my other videos, or if you'd like to, please leave a comment or a like, and please, oh please, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos as they come out in the future. Thanks again, bye bye for now.